Hello everyone, Brad Tompkins here, Vmug Executive Director for yet another episode of Visionary Voices. And today we have very special guest, Alan Davidson. Alan, welcome to the program and thank you for spending time with some Vmug members.
Thank you, we're glad to be here. So hopefully it'll be a little enlightening as to what we're doing at Broadcom internally using the VMware products.
Looking forward to getting into that. But first, you've been with Avago, of course, now Broadcom since 2005,
yes.
and that's almost 2 decades, a ton of changes in there. But now you are running Broadcom's $50 billion global IT organization. How did you get to where you are now?
I think it's a very varied journey. I think the key to it is it's a little bit of everything. So I was on the hardware side, I was on the infrastructure side, I've been on the application side, on the architecture side. So building up a level of understanding enough to be dangerous on multiple areas is certainly advantageous. I think one of the kind of key learnings moving into CIO role is really understanding the financial impacts, understanding the business objectives, getting unfortunately a little bit more away from the technology and more into the business focus side of things, but obviously the technology supports the business, so we need to really understand how cost effective, how it's going to address the business problems. And really part of the experience that I had over the 20 plus years coming in from 2005. I did have a life before 2005, but we won't talk about HP and Agilent and things, so it's okay. But really trying to get to understanding how technology impacts business rather than, you always have to have a problem you're trying to solve. Mm-hmm. You're always having to have an objective of, and it's not really technology for technology's sake, it's really addressing cost issues, headcount issues, go-to-market problems. There really needs to be a tangible process. And the way we do that within Broadcom, we have a funnel process. So I do torture most of the people within our organization, both on the infrastructure and the application side. So every project that comes around, everything that comes around has to have a business justification for why you're trying to do what you're doing and what is the hard outcomes. It's not enough to say this is going to make it better or this is going to make it perform better. For what reason? For what is the revenue impact, or what is the process simplification that you're trying to drive? And really the mantra that we focus on is simplification enables us to scale. So we really don't want to overcomplicate anything. And it's sometimes that can be a hard message to send to people who have a very good reason for being unique, but ultimately in the grand scheme of things it doesn't help the overall business, because we're in the one of the things that you need to adhere to is good enough. So it needs to be good enough to accommodate the 26 different business units and their variety of requirements and uniqueness and specialties. It needs to be good enough for everybody. So sometimes there are some winners, there are some losers, but ultimately at the end of the day, if you can drive that simplicity, you find that 90% of the time you're driving better agility, better ability to change process or pivot when business needs change. Because ultimately I would say, I've been in this industry a number of years. Technology changes, evolves probably every 5 to 7 years is a good cycle for coming around. So, we had some big data, and now we've got some AI, and now you've got, come on to quantum at some point in the next couple of years. So, there'll always be an evolution. What doesn't change is the business problems you're trying to solve. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got the same challenges on how are you going to increase your margin? How are you going to be more agile and dynamic to changing business conditions? I was a child pre-internet. So I grew up as the internet grew up. So it's been a significant challenge to adapt as quickly as social media dictates. So it's just trying to evolve that. And if you are doing that for $26 billion businesses, that gets challenging.
All right, so I like what you said about simplicity to be able to scale. You also mentioned the 26 different divisions that
Yes.
you're supporting. And I understand 17 of those are hardware-based, 9 of those are software-based.
Yes.
I mean, that has got to add a lot of potential complexity. So how do you keep people to keep it simple? And when you're talking to these GMs that are, trying to hit their numbers and those sort of things, there's got to be some pushback there.
Yeah.
How do you get them to see the vision of, look, this is why we do things the way we do it?
So there are a couple of methods. I mean, the reason I report to one person and not report to the GMs is exactly that purpose of I am in a very privileged position to be able to say no to specific businesses if they want to veer outside the boundaries of what we're providing. But ultimately, we need to deliver service. We are a service integrator within Broadcom. We need to be to give the capabilities that people are needing. We need to be in tune with the business requirements of what they're trying to achieve. So even though I have an ability to say no, it needs to be with sound reason, sound value. So really we devolve our strategy into 3 main platforms. I will give a shout out to Mainframe. Mainframe's an excellent business. It's been around for a while, it's still going. So we do support our Mainframe group, which is certainly a fairly unique but significant part of the portfolio. On the 17 hardware business units, we have what we call an engineering grid. So that is more bare metal. It's around 15,000 compute nodes, around 150 petabytes worth of storage, and it supports a lot of our engineering tool sets from Synopsys, Cadence, Mentor, a number of the EDA tools that allow us to develop, very low nanometer, very high spec ASIC designs, as well as the optics and the plethora of hardware components that we make for the industry. And then our third platform, I think, is the evolution that we've had in the last couple of years in terms of we had I would say a general compute model where we tried a number of things in terms of hyper-converged, as well as open source, as well as build your own. And we were relatively successful in doing that. But I think with the scale that VMware are bringing, we needed to rethink our strategy in terms of go back to our roots in terms of simplification. We'd overcomplicated our environment with a plethora of technology that solved problems, but didn't scale. I needed a platform that was more flexible, that allowed us to provide capability. Like I say, we need to provide capability to our business units in order for them to keep using our service. We compete with public cloud on a daily basis. We need to be as good or better from a usability perspective. So it's really enabling that VCF platform to come in and provide us with our third platform of infrastructure as a service, as well as help us evolve our platform as a service from database as a service and all the different tool sets that run on top of that.
So obviously the acquisition happened in November of last year, and then news was out that this was going to happen. But when did you first start looking at VMware and even VCF, and what were your initial impressions?
So it was a very long gestation period in terms of the due diligence phase for the VMware due to regulatory compliance concerns was around 14 months. So it was fairly long to go through that process, but it did give us a chance to talk directly to the engineering teams, lift the covers a little bit in terms of what's working well, what's not working well. And to be honest, in our previous iterations, we still use some vSphere, we use some technologies, I would say, on a horizontal level, but we really hadn't evolved into a vertical integration from a virtual data center concept perspective. So really just getting to talk to the engineering teams, getting to understand the roadmap, where they are looking to collaborate together. And to be honest, going into this, I wasn't the biggest fan of the entire VCF stack. I'm not sure they had done a great job in the past of doing vertical integration, so we really hadn't taken a look at that stack for a number of years. We'd liked the vSphere, we liked the VMs, but really the eye-opener for us was how they were evolving the vertical integration. And I think the acquisition, organizationally, they are now one group called VCF. I think one of our other One of my other items I do in my day job is we support the DevOps pipeline. So I know that we are developing one single trunk for these engineering teams to go develop the VCF9 and beyond on. So I know the hard work, the work that you don't see in front of the screen, behind the screen is happening, which is, from a culture perspective, it's very aligned to Broadcom culture in terms of we have 3/4 or more of our employees are engineers. So we're a very engineering focused company, and we like technology. I mean, we are a technology company, which also makes it interesting to support a lot of the engineers, because they typically have either invented the protocols you're running on from a networking perspective, or, so it's the Raspberry, the guy who developed Raspberry Pi works for Broadcom. So, we have luminaries within our employee base that getting them to phone up a level 1 help desk is challenging at times. So, but we do manage, and I think, a lot of what we put in place is kind of low touch. So we really don't want the employees to engage that much with IT. A lot of our simplicity is driven by self-service. A lot of the capabilities that we enable, even though we are supporting a platform, multi-tenancy is key, because each business unit needs to look and feel like they're their own business unit. So it needs to, again, it's part of the enablement that it's the ability for me to say no, means that I need to say yes to certain things and key foundations and do it well. So in order for me to do it well, I need good software, I need good capabilities in order to do that. So we need to be careful about the tools we invest in, and we need to be careful about how we implement them and configure them and move forward. But ultimately, I think if we develop a true multi-tenant solution, or as we've deployed a true multi-tenant solution within an environment, we're now just starting to see the benefits of the flexibility and the use cases that are enabling the different business units to deploy faster. All the benefits the public cloud guys are saying. And don't get me wrong, we use the public cloud as well. It's not that we don't, it's just relatively costly in the public cloud. But I think the capability, as I said at the start, our competitor is, I need to compete every day with why am I using internal environments versus public cloud. I need to develop ease of use, I need to develop capability that is equivalent or better than anything available in any of the public cloud scenarios. So I think really we're at the end of our year-long transition. It's certainly been a hard journey. We like to keep things simple. We have a day 1, day 2, day 3. Day 1 is onboarding. Everybody got their email, everybody got connected to the network, and life is good for 40,000 VMware employees. Day 2 was our business application integration, so we consolidated the back office systems, ERPs, all the rest of it in May. And day 3 is really what we're talking about here in terms of consolidating our data centers, developing that third platform based on VCF for all the different business units. And we are, we're about to come to the end of that year-long journey, and we have delivered so far on every milestone we have, with a lot of help, a lot of soul searching in terms of what to compromise on, what not to compromise on.
Late nights in there too, I bet.
A few late nights, a few early mornings, yes. But ultimately, we've succeeded in deploying around 15,500 compute nodes for the software grid, if you like, or the enterprise private cloud, and around 100 petabytes worth of storage, so across 7 data centers. But again, part of our journey was there was certainly a lot of inefficiencies in classic VMware, where we inherited around 45,000 physical nodes, but they only had 40,000 employees, so it wasn't a great advert for virtualization if you've got more than one physical compute node for employees. So we did go through a lot of consolidation, but not compromising workload. So we need to make sure that we drive up utilization, we drive standardization across from a platform perspective. So we still have to do our financial due diligence to make sure that the workload characterization is still able to be supported in the environment at scale. So that journey has taken us about a year to achieve. We did inherit around 31 data centers from VMware. Broadcom had 11. We'll end up in the next 6 weeks with 7 around the world. So it's been there's been a lot of articulated lorries with carrying a lot of stuff around the countries, but I think we're almost at the end and finish line at this point. So now we get to do the fun stuff.
Well, that's a tremendous amount of work to get.
Yes.
You mentioned the day 1, day 2, and then day 3 is coming. One thing, I talked to many Vmug members all over the globe, and you mentioned that in the beginning, the stack wasn't quite as integrated as it needs to be. And when talking to people now, especially with 5.2 being out there, VCF 5.2, we're seeing that vision. We're seeing what Broadcom said they're going to do. You're now doing this. Of course, you're teasing us with 9.0, and I know that's not part of your division there, but it is exciting to see people saying, okay, I'm starting to buy into this vision. In fact, we have our members saying, well, I bought VVF. Well, now I need to get VCF. How do I do that? So, sales teams are figuring that piece out. But that's it is exciting that we're now talking more about technology and less about acquisitions and less about how we buy things and pricing and those kind of stuff, because the fact of the matter is so many people are running their mission critical workloads on VMware. Yes. And that is the backbone, and people are like, all right, we buy into this vision and we're going to stick with it.
So I think part of the aha moment for us was, again, it's back to what is our role, what is our job within Broadcom, and really do we need to be unique in delivering infrastructure as a service to it? And I have a lot of smart people figuring out a lot of open source stuff, a lot of stitching things together, a lot of very deep level networking people, storage people, in the past, where we've done a reasonable job, like I say, in the past, with a plethora of technology. So it's not that the people weren't technically savvy, but it's back to what is our purpose. Our purpose is to keep the lights on, and our purpose is to deliver value and compete with the public cloud. So for our own company's business, in terms of it needs to be good to use, so or easy to use. So really the value that we're bringing, nobody goes to AWS or GCP or Azure or any of the hyperscalers and say, let me redesign your infrastructure for you. So it's really changing the conversation with the business units to say, don't worry about the infrastructure. We'll give you a virtual machine. We'll give you a virtual data center. We'll give you firewalls, and it will be in a self-service manner. The next thing you need to figure out then is, what do you do with that? What are you going to develop? How easy is it then to actually develop code and actually develop services and deliver end results to ultimately your own division's goals, whether that be firmware, additional software. And part of the challenge we run into is over the past 10-15 years, we have acquired a number of companies, and with those companies we inherit a lot of modern capabilities and technologies, and we inherit a lot of legacy technologies. And like I say, I've been around long enough where legacy was once the new modern. So things do evolve, but you still need the platform and the service to support them all. So really the challenge we run into is, if I can deliver a scalable, stable, secure infrastructure as a service, and that is a lot more self-service and capable, so that we're not really doing ticket management. We're not, the ticket isn't coming in, I'm not closing it, and 6 weeks later you get a machine, or you get a firewall change or something else. If that capability can be self-service, where it's within guardrails, obviously we're not doing any on firewall rules, so there are certain guardrails we'll put in place. But I think as we went through the VCF deployment journey, we actually spent the first 2 months not doing anything other than defining policy and defining security rules and defining the architecture of what we wanted to get out of the system before we started really in anger doing any type of deployment. Because it's really a case of getting your org structure correct, getting your security profiles correct. We have general availability zones or pods. We have business unit specific pods, and then we've got high security pods. So we've got things where, we bought Symantec a few years ago. One of their objectives is to physically explode malware within that environment. From a contractor and lawyer perspective, that's not a good thing to do in a public cloud, because you're deliberately infecting that environment. So you need to do that on premise in a controlled way, but we need to make sure we can define that with software and not by rewiring or recabling, because I'm looking at, if I add the hardware and the software businesses, we've got around 35,000 nodes plus 250 petabytes worth of storage. This is not something. This is not a training environment. This is real world production, fairly large scale. Now, not hyperscalers. We are not the largest. We are not the largest company in the world. I'm sure there are more companies.
You've got a lot.
We've got enough to be useful.
Right.
Okay. So we'll get enough to deliver good, scalable solutions. So again, why did we get to 7 data centers? Because it meant I could scale out each one of them. So I had enough capability within each of these data centers to move workloads around, because shockingly enough, we still need to patch, we still need to keep things upgradable, we still need to make changes to the environment where I need to be able to leverage like vMotion. I need to be able to, the workload doesn't stop. We're way beyond 7 by 24 by 365. These things are, there's very limited capability or acceptance within the business units for any kind of downtime. So we, at the scale we're running at, we really need a solution that delivers high availability and resiliency and redundancy. But we cannot forget security. Again, the security has to be built in, which is why we spent enough time at the start to really figure out the security model, the org structure. Because I do have a Coke and Pepsi problem. I do have, we get audited, we are under regulatory constraints where I have business units that can't see other business units' data and vice versa. So it's not a nice to have, it's a must. So we get, and we get audited on an annual basis on all these things. So plus we are in a highly regulatory environment, and it's only getting more complicated. That's as politically correct as I can make it. So, but it's getting more complicated to really understand where your data is. Is it important? Is it not important? What gets exposed? What doesn't get exposed? So, really getting back to one of our core tenets was keep it simple from a data model perspective. One of the reasons we were able to do the business applications so quickly, the consolidation, was we just focused on the data. We just focused on cleaning the data, making sure the data was good, and we let the rest take care of itself. The same's true for our pipelines, for how we develop our code, how we develop our repositories. So making sure we have a common understanding, a common tool set as much as possible. Obviously, we still need to accommodate legacy, we still need to accommodate the things that are not meant to be, there's no financial reason to re-engineer them. They just need to stay as they are, so we just need to keep going. We need to make sure that we can have enough capability to sustain that, but obviously invest in the more modern things that are going to evolve and take its
right.
own. So.
Well, it was interesting, and I like what you said about, telling the business unit, don't worry about the compute, we'll get that.
Yes.
We'll get that for you. That's what, the Vmug members are striving to get to, and some are certainly right there, but I think VCF is a big piece of that, to operate like an on-prem cloud. That's kind of where,
yes.
Where everybody wants to go. And you also mentioned that, you're not using not every workload is on-prem. Be smart. Run your workload where it makes the most sense.
Exactly.
The workload should determine where it runs. And then, going from 31 data centers down to 7 is mind-blowing. Like, I know you've got a team that helps you out with this. So
Yes.
talk a little bit about the team that you have and how, again, Broadcom is 365, 24 hours a day. You've got operations all over the globe.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your team and how do y'all manage all this?
It takes a village, so we don't do it alone. We do have, like I say, we have very smart engineers, network people, storage people, server people, although that will transition as we go forward, and it already is starting. We do leverage partners, so we leverage HCL and Deloitte for a lot of the, I would say, keeping the lights on from an operational perspective, but I would say the key designs, the key architecture, the key strategy, the implementation, we have 292 people within Broadcom IT.
Wow, I thought that number would be a lot bigger.
No, but that includes everybody. That includes end user services, security, infrastructure. So infrastructure is of 78 people, and again, part of the reason we can I wouldn't say get away with that level of resourcing. It's you don't need quantity. The more people you have, the harder it is to get things done. It's actually if you have the right idea, if you have the right strategy, and you design it in the right way, I don't need 10 people doing the same thing. And it's really part of the challenges is, like I say, when I mentioned server, network, storage people, firewall people. That is evolving now to be, in order to be part of that infrastructure group, you have to be proficient in at least 2 disciplines, if not 3. So it needs, as the technology is enabling a vertically integrated stack, the resourcing needs to step up to be vertically integrated from a skill set, because it's all connected. Shockingly enough, there is no silos anymore. So, do I still have a deep level 4 storage guy, a deep level 4 network person? Yes, but I would say we're migrating more to multidisciplines, people who understand the connectivity, the end-to-end from an infrastructure. Because if I'm starting to develop operators and platforms and database as a service on top of this needs to be resilient. If I'm having some application platform issues, I need to know very quickly it's not an infrastructure platform problem. So that end-to-end, we're blurring the lines between the application and infrastructure to a degree, and we're starting to get more vertically integrated from a technology skill set perspective. So I have an infrastructure group. I don't have a storage group or a networking group or a firewall group. I have an infrastructure group that maintains the infrastructure.
Yeah, that sounds like great advice for the typical Vmug member out there. Obviously, they tell us they want to move up the stack and those kind of things. All of them know vSphere, so that's a familiar UI to get there.
Yes.
But learn the other disciplines. Learn storage, learn networking, learn automation, security.
Yes.
I think in the years to come, that's going to be a must and not just a nice to have.
If you want to take advantage of the platform, private cloud is not private virtualization. It's private networking and firewall and storage and threat prevention and security profiles, and it's multidiscipline. If you are wanting to spin up a data center on demand or a lab on demand, it's the button is just that one button there. The automation, the capabilities behind the scene it gets interesting real quick. So as long as but you need to define your architecture up front. You need to define your capabilities, because if you're dealing with a level of complexity that you can't figure out, automating it is only going to get bad things happening quicker. So it's just, this is a good chance to take a different approach from how you set out your networking policy, how you set out your firewall rules, understand your east-west traffic better. Because obviously private cloud is way more taxing on east-west than it is north-south. So obviously you need a a spine leaf architecture. The aggregated architecture networking isn't going to support a private cloud at scale. So, really getting into some of the spine leaf stuff in the networking is key to enable the large amount of scale of east-west traffic that is necessary. Why do the hyperscalers invest so much in networking? Mm-hmm. That's the key to make everything else happen. So
yeah, no, that makes sense. So Alan, obviously Vmug is here and we're doing this interview. Tell us a little bit about what your perception is of the Vmug community, and obviously Broadcom is investing in it. What does Vmug mean to Broadcom?
I mean, Vmug is our lifeline to how the technology is being used, what's working, what's not working. Having an active and vocal community is our best source of feedback, our best measure, barometer of is what we're doing working. Because I go back to my previous point on, you need problems to solve. You need scalable, reliable solutions. So if we're developing something that's off in the weeds that doesn't really apply to the majority, then we need to know, because we have scarce resourcing from a product perspective. We want to make sure we're focusing on the right things, the key items that are going to really drive and make a difference in the broader community, because otherwise it's a science experiment then. I mean, we don't need to be a science experiment. We need to deliver real world business objectives and business capabilities with the solutions. So having that feedback from the community is key. And then obviously, you've got some very technically astute and capable members, where if we are developing platforms, giving that community an ability to co-develop with us is obviously going to be key moving forward. So, hopefully we can evolve that platform over the next few years.
Looking forward to continuing the partnership.
Yep.
Well, one last question for you. The Vmug members, we're out there over 150,000 strong, and we dabble in a lot of different things after hours. So what's your favorite thing to do after hours? Are you into gaming, into Plex? You mentioned, Raspberry Pi. We've got those running all over the place. What do you like to do?
I do have a very interesting home network, which gets challenging from time to time. It doesn't please my family when things don't go too well and I'm traveling. But
you're not telling me you're level 1 support for the home network, right?
Well, my daughter's level 1 support for the home network. I'm level 3 really when it really gets too crazy. But I'm a technologist at heart, so I try and. It's been a little while since I've touched the keyboard in anger and from a company perspective, but you do have to keep your hand in. Obviously, the pace of technology innovation is constantly going, so and it's only increasing. So just getting into matrix multiplication and AI and statistical analysis and quantum and these things are what's coming next is always interesting. But how does that apply to you? The fact that I can now see an emoji of myself on a screen that looks and sounds like me, it scares me a little bit. I was going to say something more inappropriate, but let's just say it worries me a lot. So just understanding that complexity. But like I say, technology is always a passion. It probably, hopefully, will never fade. If I think I know everything, then I'm probably fooling myself first. So and I've got more capable people around me that tell me exactly that I don't know what I'm talking about, which is fine by me. So, but yeah, I mean, it's just keeping pace, but having time to take a breath is this year's been challenging. Hopefully, we get time to take a little bit of a breath in the next few months, but just to reset. But work is everything. Family is there forever. So hopefully. We need to focus on the important things, so you focus on them.
Well, I really appreciate you spending some time. In your perspective, coming from Avago and Broadcom, and the way you looked at VCF, the way you deployed VCF and those kind of things, is really a unique perspective, and one that I know that our members and the folks watching will really enjoy it. Alan, thanks so much for being on Visionary Voices.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching today's episode of Visionary Voices. We hope you found this interesting, and if you would like to get more involved with Vmug, you can do that at vmug.com. Thank you for watching.